Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
What's going on, everybody? Guess what time it is? It is Fearless Faith Friday here on the Afternoon Praise. And you know what? You're tuned in to Wave Radio. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. And this week has been phenomenal. See, we have reached the end of an incredible week, people. See, on Monday, we confronted reality. On Tuesday, we learned not to confuse loss with defeat. And yesterday, we discovered that recovery is an ownership decision. And I know you probably was like, you skipped Wednesday. You know, I wasn't on air Wednesday. So, you know, I wasn't myself feeling good Wednesday. So I wasn't on air Wednesday. So I didn't skip Wednesday. But today, we are going to answer one final question. What do I do next? And I want us to go here. Let's look at Hebrews 11 verse 8. By faith, listen to that. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing whither he went. I'm gonna read this again because this is powerful. Hebrews 11:8. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing whither he went. Think about that, people. See, Abraham obeyed before he understood the entire journey. He moved before he possessed the complete plan. See, that's because God often gives directions before he gives detail. See, many of us have been waiting for God to show us the entire blueprint. But throughout scripture, people, God rarely works like that. See, Joshua had to step into the Jordan before the water parted. David strengthened himself before pursuing the Amalekites. Nehemiah rebuilt one section of the wall at a time. And see, and Israel received manna one day at a time. See, God didn't ask them to understand the whole journey. He asked them to trust him with the next step. Think about it. This is like a game of chess, people. See, no grandmaster wins because he knows the last move before the first move is ever made. He wins because he consistently makes the best next moves based on the board in front of him. See, every move changes the board. Every decision creates new information. Every opportunity demands new wisdom, people. That's why today's show is called The Next Step is More Important Than the Entire Plan. Yes, I'm going to say that again. The next step is more important than the entire plan. See, today I want to give you the next move framework. Read the board, people. Trust the principle. Make the move. And read the new board. Because your future won't be built by having the perfect plan. It will be built one faithful, one wise, one strategic move at a time. Let's go, people. It is Fearless Faith Friday, and we're going to bring this week home strong. So tell somebody, tell a family member, tell a friend to tune in, because the afternoon praise, we are going to change some lives.
Join us on this heavenly journey, one song at a time, Wave Radio.
You're listening to the afternoon praise on this Fearless Faith Friday, and today's show, we're talking about the next step is more important than the entire plan. See, people, we got to read the board. We got to read the board. See, the first thing every great chess player does is study the board. They don't panic. They don't rush. They don't move emotionally. They observe. They ask, what has actually happened? Not what they fear, not what they imagine. What is actually true? What is actually happening right now? And that's wisdom. And see, many of us lose before we ever move because we are reacting to assumptions instead of reality. See, that's cognitive distortion. See, our minds begin filling in information we don't actually possess. We imagine failure before we even start. we predict rejection before we even have the conversation. And we assume defeat before we made the move. That's why Proverbs tell us, people, trust in the Lord with all thy heart. Not some of thy heart, but with all thy heart, and lean not into thy own understanding. See, God isn't making us to ignore reality. He's asking us to see reality through wisdom instead of fear. Before you make your next move, read the board, people. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
You're riding the waves of faith and grace on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. People, stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect plan. There will never be a perfect plan. You have to build the plan. What builds the plan is consistency, is progress, is execution. See, one of the greatest lies we tell ourselves is this: I'll start when I have everything figured out. Can I tell you something? There has never been a successful entrepreneur, a successful ministry or nonprofit or family or successful leader who had everything figured out before they began. And research consistently shows that successful organizations don't succeed because they create perfect plans. They succeed because they adapt faster than anyone else. And that's why companies like Amazon, Toyota, Apple, they build cultures around continuous improvement instead of perfect execution. See, progress beats perfection. Execution beats imagination. Now, planning has its values, but planning that never becomes movement becomes what? It becomes procrastination. Yes, it becomes procrastination dressed in professional clothes. See, sometimes the perfect plan is simply fear wearing a business suit. Yes, that perfect plan you waiting for is fear. That's all it is. It's fear. See, don't wait until you know everything, people. Move with what God has already shown you. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. It is Fearless Faith Friday. And today, see, look at that. I'm doing too much, right? See, I started to stutter. But today's show is the next step is more important than the entire plan. See, Abraham didn't receive a blueprint. Hebrews chapter 11 tells us Abraham obeyed God and left. But notice something, people. God didn't tell him everything. God didn't show him everything. He didn't hand Abraham a complete map. He didn't explain every stop along the journey. He simply said, go. See, that's difficult for people like us, like me, because we love certainty. We want 5-year plans, 10-year strategies, guaranteed outcomes. But faith has always required movement before complete understanding. That's not poor planning. That's trusting the one who already knows the destination. See, sometimes God withholds the entire picture because if he showed us everything, we depend on the plan instead of depending on him. Faith isn't believing you'll never have questions. Faith is moving while questions still exist. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. And today on Fearless Faith Friday, we are talking about the next step is more important than the entire plan. And I want to give you the next step framework, the next move framework. And today I want you to remember these 4 principles. 1, read the board, read the current board, observe reality, gather information, tell yourself the truth. The second piece of this framework, trust the principle. What has God already said? What wisdom already exists? What do you already know to be true? The third part of the framework, make the move. Stop waiting. Take the next faithful action. Not tomorrow, not next month, but today. And then finally, the fourth part of this framework, read the new board. See, every decision creates a new reality. Every step reveals information you couldn't see while standing still. See, that's exactly how strategy works. That's exactly how leadership works. And people, that's exactly how faith works. God doesn't always reveal the entire plan, but he always faithfully gives you enough to guide your next move. So again, the framework. This is my next move framework. 1, read the board. 2, trust the principle. 3, make the move. 4, read the new board. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio, and we are talking about the next step is more important than the entire plan. So without that next step, that plan is useless. It's useless. Let's talk about action. Yes, action. Action creates clarity. See, one of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing clarity becomes before action. Yeah, research tell us the opposite, people. See, psychologists call it behavioral activation. See, one of the most effective treatments for people struggling with depression isn't waiting until they feel better. No, it's not waiting to feel better before they move. It's helping them move so they can begin feeling better. See, action changes thinking. Action changes emotions. Action changes perspective. And many people are waiting for clarity. But clarity is waiting on movement, people. You've been praying for direction. God may be waiting on your next step. You've been asking God to reveal tomorrow. God may be asking you to trust him today. See, the next move often reveals information the last position could not provide. Can I say that again? Okay, I'm gonna say it anyway. Your next move will often reveal information that your current position or your last position could never provide. That's why clarity follows obedience, not the other way around, people. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. Let's talk about Joshua had to get his feet wet, right? See, Joshua chapter 3 has always fascinated me, right? Because God promised Israel they would cross the Jordan. But the river didn't stop flowing while they stood safely on the bank. See, the priest had to step into the water first. Think about that. See, the miracle wasn't waiting on God's ability. The miracle was waiting on their obedience. Can you imagine standing there? The currents are moving fast. Whoa, whoa, whoa. The water rushing. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Everything in your mind says, this doesn't make sense. I'm not going across there because that water is going to sweep me away and I'm going to drown. But guess what? Guess what? Yet God says, step. See, sometimes the greatest obstacle isn't the river. It's the fear of getting your feet wet. See, some of us have been standing on the bank of opportunity for years, waiting for the water to move, waiting for the right doors to open, waiting for the right people to invite you into a meeting. But no, stop waiting for the water to move. God says, move your feet now. Faith doesn't eliminate uncertainty. Faith moves through uncertainty. Get your feet wet, people. Get your feet wet. Go make that next move. Stop waiting on people. You are the table. Stop waiting to be invited to somebody else's table. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Bringing the sounds of heaven 24/7, Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Let's talk about decision paralysis. See, researchers have another phrase, analysis paralysis. See, it happens when you gather so much information that we stop making decisions altogether. See, information becomes an excuse. Research becomes a hiding place. Planning becomes procrastination. See, we've convinced ourselves that one more book, one more seminar, let me go get this next certification, will finally make us ready. But readiness does not always come before movement, people. See, many times readiness is developed while moving. And let's be clear, don't misunderstand what I'm saying, people. Planning do matter, preparation do matter, and research do matter. That's why we use research every single day on this show. But eventually, research has to become execution. See, knowledge without movement produces frustration. Wisdom applied produces transformation. So some of you all are hiding behind the planning. Some of you all are hiding behind the preparation. Some of you all are hiding behind the research. You are hiding behind it. You're operating in fear. So again, don't misunderstand me. Planning matters, preparation matters, research matters, but you got to stop hiding behind it and execute with what you have already. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on this Fearless Faith Friday. Yes, we have made it to the weekend, and I celebrate you because you kept going, you kept pushing. Even when you felt like just giving up and quitting, you kept going. And you might have just took a break one day. You might have just paused. It's okay because you have to reset when you're going through some things. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to go through some things, but just don't quit. Don't quit. And I celebrate you for not quitting. Yes. But I need people to read the new board. See, what I mean by the new board, you got to read the room and the situation every time you make a new decision because the board changes. It's just like chess. When a move is made, the whole board changes. See, here's something every chess player understands. The board changes after every move. See, that's why yesterday's strategy cannot always solve today's challenge. And every decision reveals new opportunities, new obstacles, new information. See, that's why I love our fourth principle. Read the new board. Don't become so committed to your original plan that you ignore new wisdom. And the business teaches this. Leadership teaches this. I was in the military. Even military strategy teaches this. See, John Boyd's famous OODA loop reminds leaders to observe, decide, act, then observe again. Why? Because every action creates a new environment. Life works the same way. You don't need to know every move you will make 6 months from now. You simply need enough wisdom to evaluate the board after today's move. See, that's stewardship. That's leadership. And people, that's faith. And again, let's look at this. The famous OODA. Observe. You got to observe. You have to decide. You have to act. Then observe again. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and today's show, we are talking about the next step. The next step is more important than the entire plan. Not what you're going to do 3 days, 5 days, 6 days from now. No, what is your next step? Because your next step determines your third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. So your next step is more important than the entire plan. See, Nehemiah didn't build the whole wall. Nehemiah never woke up and said, today I'm going to build the entire wall. No, he understood something every great builder understands. Big visions are accomplished through small assignments. See, Nehemiah chapter 3 tells us families repaired the sections of the wall directly in front of their own homes. Think about God's wisdom. He didn't overwhelm everyone with an entire project. He gave each person the next responsibility. One family, one section, one assignment. And eventually, guess what happened? In 52 days, the wall was completed. See, sometimes we become discouraged because we're looking at the entire wall instead of the section God have placed us in front of. You don't have to finish everything today. You simply have to be faithful with today's assignment. See, great accomplishments are rarely built in giant leaps. They are built through ordinary people making extraordinary commitments to the next piece of the vision. And that's why the next step, your next step, is more important than your whole entire plan. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Let's talk about manna. See, let's talk about the manna. Let's talk about the manna principle. See, when God, and the manna principle, there ain't a word, and manna is in the Bible, but the manna principle ain't in the Bible. So don't go looking. Let me find the manna principle. No, this is what I come up with my show through studying. But let's talk about the manna principle. See, when God fed Israel in the wilderness, he could have given them enough food for 40 years, right? But instead, he gave them enough for one day. Why? Why did he do that? See, because dependency was part of the lesson. See, when they tried to gather tomorrow's provisions today, it's spoiled. Isn't that interesting? See, sometimes we're trying to collect tomorrow's answer before we've obeyed today's instruction. And God often gives us daily wisdom because daily wisdom keeps us connected to him. Just imagine if Abraham had demanded everything, every detail before leaving. Just imagine if Joshua refused to step until he saw dry ground. Or let's even go here. Just imagine if Peter waited until every wave stopped moving. See, none of them would have experienced the miracle. See, sometimes God doesn't reveal tomorrow because today's obedience is preparing you to handle tomorrow's responsibility. Trust today's instruction, people. Trust God. Tomorrow has his own wisdom. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and if you miss any part of this show, you can go back to my YouTube channel, Understanding the Play, and listen to the show in its entirety, minus the music, or I'm not going to force you to go to the YouTube. Any platform you listen to your podcast, put in the Afternoon Praise and pow, it will pop up and you can listen to any show that you miss. But let's talk about small wins create big momentum. And see, we have been told we got to celebrate the big wins, celebrate the big things. No, we got to celebrate the small wins. It's the small wins that create big momentum. See, one of my favorite research studies is called the progress principle. See, the researchers analyzed thousands of workplace journal entries and discovered something fun. I done chopped it up. Fascinating. Excuse me, y'all. See, the greatest motivator wasn't money. It wasn't recognition. It wasn't even promotions. The greatest motivator was making meaningful progress. Think about that, people. Progress creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence fuels the next step. See, the brain even rewards progress by releasing dopamine, reinforcing the desire to continue moving, the desire to keep going, to keep winning. See, God designed us to experience growth one step at a time. And don't underestimate small victories, people. Stop doing that to yourself. Stop allowing people to say, oh, you just did a little something. That won't much. I done did this. Who cares what you did? But at this moment, I made it to the next moment. This moment, hey, I had problems doing emails. I got through this email. My grammar was correct. This was this. Or I worked out today. Yeah, I only did a half a mile. Celebrate that half a mile. Stop allowing people to make you discouraged over your small wins. Celebrate that. See, again, don't underestimate small victories. Every faithful decision compounds. Every small victory compounds. Every wise choice builds another layer. See, small decisions become strong habits. Strong habits build strong character. And strong character builds lasting influence. Never ever allow someone to make you despise small progress. Small progress is still progress. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and this is Fearless Faith Friday, and we're talking about the next step. Your next step. The next step is more important than the entire plan. And that with Fearless Faith Friday, let's talk about this. Faith is strategic, people. See, sometimes people think faith means ignoring wisdom. Nothing could be further from the truth. Faith isn't reckless. Faith is strategic. Faith listens. Faith learns. Faith prepares. It studies. Faith seeks counsel. Then faith moves. See, notice throughout Scripture that God's people weren't passive. Noah built. Joshua stored grain. Nehemiah organized workers. David inquired the Lord before pursuing. Even Jesus often withdrew to pray before making major decisions. Faith doesn't eliminate strategy. Faith gives strategy its proper foundation. See, strategy without God becomes pride, people. I'm going to say that again. Strategy without God becomes pride. Faith without wisdom becomes presumption. But faith guided by wisdom, That's where extraordinary things happen, people. That's why your next move matters so much. Not because it's perfect, but because it's guided by wisdom. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. Let's talk about when the plan changes. Yes. See, a lot of us don't know how to pivot. A lot of us are scared to pivot. We look at pivot as a loss. Or I told people I was going to do this and that. It ain't about people. It's about pivoting. It's about what God say. Hey, I need you to go this way. I need you to change direction. So when the plan changes, you got to change. Can I encourage somebody today? Can I, please? So stop being discouraged because your original plan didn't work. See, every leader has had to rewrite the plan. Every successful business has pivoted. Every great organization has adapted. And the question isn't whether your plan will change. The question is, will your purpose change? Purpose remains constant. Strategies adapt. See, that's why I love what we've been talking about this whole week. Recovery isn't pretending nothing happened, people. Recovery is learning how to move wisely after something happened. David's plan changed. Joseph's plan changed. Paul's missionary journey changed. Yet God's purpose never changed. And sometimes we become so committed to the original strategy that we miss God's present direction. See, don't fall in love with your plan. Fall in love with your purpose. Purpose will survive every detour. Purpose will survive every disappointment. Your purpose will survive every setback. And if your purpose is still alive, there's still another move to make. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Do you remember last month when we was talking, I said standing still is also a decision? I know people say, I'm not going to make a decision today. I'm not going to vote. No, you're not making a decision. It's making a decision. See, here's something we don't talk about enough. Not making a move, not making a decision is still making a move. It's still making a decision. See, waiting can become a decision. Fear can become a decision. Procrastination can become a decision. And many people believe their plan is safe, but they are actually making one of the riskiest decisions possible. Because every day you refuse to move, the board changes anyway. Opportunities don't stand still, people. Markets don't stand still. Relationships don't stand still. Time certainly doesn't stand still. See, James reminds us that life is like a vapor. You don't get today's opportunities back tomorrow. And I'm not telling you to make recklessly, to move recklessly, to make recklessly moves. I'm not saying that. I'm telling you not to allow fear to disguise itself as wisdom. See, there's a difference between waiting on God and waiting because you are afraid. One produces peace, the other produces paralysis. Don't confuse the two, people. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
If you're just tuned in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. And today on this Fearless Faith Friday, we are talking about the next step. Your next step is more important than the entire plan. Your next move, people. Your next move. Let me bring this home. See, you may not know where you'll be 5 years from now, and that's okay. You may not know how everything is going to work out. People, that's okay. You will still have unanswered questions. That's okay. But here's the only question that really matters. What's your next move? That's the only question that really matters. Maybe it's making the phone call you've been avoiding, applying for the position, forgiving someone, starting your business, or finishing your degree. It may be apologizing for something you did. Maybe writing the first page of your book. Maybe recording your first podcast. Maybe it's saying yes to what God has already been speaking into your heart. See, stop trying to solve next year's problems. Make today's wise decision. Remember our framework. Read the board. Trust the principle. Make the move and read the new board. Then repeat it all over again. See, that framework is it's a repeatable thing. See, that's how recovery happens. That's how leadership grows. That's how faith matures. One wise move at a time. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
If you just tuned in, you know what that means when I say that at the end of the show. That means my time is up. It's been great. It's been lovely. And like I always say, if you missed the show, that's cool. That's cool. You can go back and listen to the playback on my YouTube channel or any platform you listen to your podcast. Just put in the Afternoon Praise and voila, I pop up. Yes. But let me before we close, as we close out this week, I want you to remember something. On Monday, we confronted reality. On Tuesday, we refuse to confuse loss with defeat. And on Thursday, we discovered that recovery is an ownership decision. And on today, we've learned that the next move is more important than the entire plan. Why? Because every great future is built one faithful decision at a time. You don't need God to reveal the next 10 years today. You need enough courage to obey today's instruction. And I want you to remember these people right here. Remember Abraham, remember Joshua, remember Nehemiah, remember David. Because none of them had the complete blueprint. They had enough faith to take the next step. So before this day ends, people, don't ask yourself, what does my whole future look like? Ask yourself, what's my next move? And then trust God enough to make it. Because your next move may become the very move that changes your life. Hey, I want to thank you for joining me this week on the Afternoon Praise. I'm Demetrius L. Brown, aka the Business Point God, and reminding you that God has not called you to see the entire path. He's called you to faithfully walk the next step. Hey, I want y'all to have an incredible weekend. Keep building, keep believing, and I'll see you next week right here on Wave Radio for Motivation Monday. I'm out of here. Peace.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.